tried to bring scientific thinking to literary criticism, and there's been very little gratitude for this. Stories have very simple shapes. This is a GI axis: good fortune, ill fortune, death, terrible disease, poverty, boisterous good health, happiness up here. This is the BE axis: beginning, entropy. I'll give you a marketing tip. The people who can afford educations and can read don't like to read about people who are poor or sick. So start your story up here. The simplest story, if you stay home and watch this on television, it'll be told again and again and again. Nobody ever gets tired of this story. I call it Man in a Hole, but it needn't be about a man in a hole. Somebody gets into trouble, gets out of it again. The far end is a little higher than where we began because, the reader thinks, well, by God, I'm a human being too. I must have that much in reserve if I get into trouble or whatever. Now, another story that's very popular, and none of these are copyrighted. I call it Boy Meets Girl, but it needn't be about a boy or a girl. Somebody, on a day like any other day, comes across something perfectly wonderful. Oh boy, this is my lucky day. Shit. And gets it back again. Look at the wonderful rise and fall of our stories. Another story is very popular, and it breaks my rule. Starts down here. It's a young girl, teenage, I guess, maybe 17, 18. Why is she so low? Well, her mother's died. Reading enough, right? And her father has remarried almost immediately to a terrible old battle axe with two mean daughters. And there's a party at the palace that night. You've heard it. All right, so she has to help her new mother and her sisters get dressed for this party. She doesn't get to go. He said, no, she's not good enough to go, but they are. So did she get even sadder? No. She's a stout-hearted little girl. It's maximum grief is death of her mother. So everybody leaves for the party, and the fairy godmother shows up and gives her pantyhose, mascara, perfume, means of transportation, carriage with horses, everything you need to go to a party and have a good time. She goes, and the prince falls in love with her. Now you must realize she is so heavily made up that her own relatives don't recognize her. So the clock strikes 12, as promised, and so she loses all the stuff. It's all taken away, and the fairy godmother said that was going to happen. Does she drop down to the same level? No. For the rest of her life, she'll remember the time she was the belle of the ball. So she poops along at this considerably improved level until the shoe fits, and she becomes off-scale happy. Now, there's a Franz Kafka story. Very pessimistic. Starts down here. There's this rather unattractive, not particularly nice-looking, not very personable young man who has a really lousy job and disagreeable relatives. So it's time for him to go to work again, and he has turned into a cockroach. All right, now, this rise and fall is in fact artificial. It's pretense that we know more about life than we really do. What's perhaps a true masterpiece cannot be crucified on a cross of this design. Let's try Hamlet, okay? I don't have to draw a new level. The sexes are reversed, but he's in the same situation as Cinderella. His father has died, and his mother is remarried, his uncle. So he is depressed as Cinderella. And his friend Horatio comes in and says, hey, Hamlet, there's this thing up on the parapet. I think you better go talk to it. It says it's your father. So Hamlet goes up there. Now, we don't know is any of you who have horsed around with Ouija boards or with any sort of seances or anything, you know there are malicious spirits around who are looking for saps like you, who are going to find ways to hurt you, give you very bad advice. So to this day, we do not know whether that thing up there on the parapet was really the ghost of his father and whether it was telling him the truth. But the thing said, I'm your father. I was murdered by the man who's now the king, and you've got to avenge me. Well, since we don't know what it was, what it is, it's neither good news nor bad news, because we don't know. All right, Hamlet says, I know what I'll do. I'll stage a play. I'll hire actors and get them to act out the way the murder was described to me, and I'll have the murder suspect watch his reaction. Well, okay, so he does that. It's a flop. Nothing much happens. And so Hamlet is up in his mother's chamber talking right after this flop, and curtains wave, or the arras wave. And so he figures his uncle is back there, his new father, supposedly. And so he's going to finally be decisive. And he pulls out his sword, sticks it through the drapes. Who falls out? This windbag, Polonius. And Shakespeare regards him as a total fool, giving just the kind of dumb advice parents give their kids when they go away. You know, neither a borrower nor a lender be. Thanks a lot, Dad. What a swell time. Is this terrible? Is Hamlet going to get arrested or what? No. It's neither good nor bad news. Just something had happened. So finally, Hamlet gets in a duel and is killed. If he goes to heaven, he's off scale, happy like Cinderella. If he's going to hell, he's off scale, unhappy like Kafka's cockroach. But we don't know. I don't think Hamlet believed in heaven and hell any more than I do. I mean, that Shakespeare didn't. I have, in fact, told you why this is respected as a masterpiece. We are so seldom told the truth. In Hamlet, Shakespeare tells us. We don't know enough about life to know what the good news is and the bad news is, and we respond to that. Thank you, Bill. Well, all we do is we pretend to know what the good news is and what the bad news is, and you think about our training in this matter, all we do is echo the feelings of people around us. So, although I don't believe in heaven, I would like to go up to such a place once just to ask somebody in charge, hey, what was the good news and what was the bad news?